Before we proceed, I'd like to summarize what we've covered in this series playlist so far. We began with an introduction to Hegel's philosophy in the video titled Georg Hegel, From Self-Consciousness to Reason, Advancing to Spirit and Absolute Knowing, with the thumbnail subtitle, From the Love of Knowing to Actual Knowing. Here, we delved into many of Hegel's insights regarding the use of reason to overcome Immanuel Kant's fear of the noumenal realm. While Kant saw a wall stopping any advancement of knowledge, Hegel, through a speculative lens and the use of reason, demonstrated that progress is indeed possible. We also explored Hegel's solution for overcoming Kant's resistance to knowing the thing in itself. Finally, through Hegel's critique of religion, we examined what it means to understand the concept of God. Instead of positing a personal God who dictates to man, Hegel suggests that it is through spirit or Geist that we perceive God's intention. In the second video, titled Using Speculative and Pragmatic Philosophy to Understand History and Our Place in Evolution, with the subtitle thumbnail, Can We Shake Off the Master-Servant Dynamic? I employed Hegel's recommended approach for acquiring knowledge, speculation and reason. Together with some insight from Hannah Arendt, we delved into an analysis of Greek politics, while also hinting at some of my ideas for a new paradigm. For the third video, titled, Is the God Debate a False Dilemma?, I addressed the inherent bipolar nature of the problem we continually encounter. I highlighted the correlation between speculative and pragmatic philosophy and both hemispheres of the brain. In the last video titled, Resolving the God Debate, we explored the notion that instead of proposing a personal God who dictates to humanity as an alternative, as Hegel suggests, it is through spirit or Geist that we apprehend God's intention. Through this insight, the God debate becomes irrelevant. Furthermore, by acknowledging the tangible presence of the spirit of life, whether we consider ourselves creations of a deity or products of a cosmic accident, we can not only speculate but also employ a pragmatic approach to acquiring knowledge. We also explored the subject of the afterlife, touching on near-death experiences. Whether you consider the many reports of these experiences valid or not, the subject warrants investigation. Then, we delved into Nietzsche's critique of the Christian Judeo use of the concept of the afterlife, outlining its toxic teachings. Then, I concluded the video by outlining our next steps. We will begin by adopting a pragmatic approach. Once we have established our foundation through this process, we can then proceed to speculate further. The pragmatic approach I will be taking pertains to a subject that neither Hegel nor Nietzsche addressed. It gained popularity through the treatment by the likes of St. Thomas Aquinas, but his description is somewhat lacking due to his close affiliation with the Catholic Church. Additionally, other influential philosophers allude to this topic, but they not only do it a disservice, but also arrive at a result that is in exact opposition to it. The subject we will delve into now is natural law. The following information is derived from a 9-hour presentation on the topic by Mark Passio. The complete seminar has its own playlist on this channel, and I highly recommend watching it in its entirety. In this video, I will be highlighting two facets. The first part pertains to natural law and how it operates for the individual, its subjective impact on our lives. The second part concerns the external realm, the objective level. Together, these segments provide a solid introduction to this important body of knowledge. Viewing the entire seminar offers a deeper understanding of other essential principles, concepts, and methods. Once again, I highly recommend it, and I will cover these additional relevant parts in future videos. Let's first establish the definition for natural law. Natural signifies something inherent, rooted in nature, reality, and truth, and is not created or caused by humankind. Therefore, if it's natural, it wasn't crafted by humanity. Mankind did not create it. And the definition of the word law is an existing condition that is both binding and immutable. Let's delve into each of these terms. Existing means that it is present. Binding denotes that it has an effect, regardless of whether you believe in its influence or comprehend it. It is immutable, meaning that no action can alter it. It remains in effect eternally. We are bound by these laws, irrespective of our preferences, acceptance, or understanding. They shape the reality we experience, and we are constantly co-creating with them, whether in harmony or opposition, as long as we exist in the physical domain. So the working definition for natural law is, it comprises universal, non-man-made, binding and immutable conditions that dictate the consequences of human behavior. It governs the behavior of all intelligent beings. Natural law represents a body of universal spiritual laws that serve as the governing dynamics of consciousness. The following are the core elements that illustrate how natural law operates. These expressions serve as the recognizable workings in our lives and are categorized into 5 basic expressions. Each of these expressions of natural law has both a positive and a negative aspect, resulting in a total of 10 overall natural law expressions. Here we have the expression with a positive aspect and a negative aspect. The first expression of natural law is known as the generative polarity. This represents the force or energy that we utilize at the fundamental level to initiate the process of creation or co-creation. Essentially, the force we employ to generate or create the quality of our experience. The positive aspect of the generative polarity of natural law is love. In the context of natural law, love should be regarded as the expansive force for consciousness. It is the force that assists us in becoming open to truth and expanding our awareness. The negative aspect of the generative polarity is the exact opposite of love: fear. Fear is the contractive force for consciousness, influencing us to become closed to the truth and ultimately shutting down our awareness. It confines consciousness and prevents its growth, keeping it stagnant. The second expression of natural law is the initiating expression. It represents the initial stage of tangible and recognizable results in our lives after we've, quote, set the ball rolling, or set the dynamic in motion by choosing between the generative polarities of either love or fear. When we opt for love, a transformative process begins, leading us to become open to truth. The positive aspect of this initiating expression is knowledge, or the acceptance of truth. Knowledge exerts a positive influence on the quality of our lives by enhancing our decision-making processes, thereby fostering understanding in every area of our lives. Conversely, the negative aspect of the initiating expression is ignorance. Ignorance entails the refusal of truth, a reluctance to acquire knowledge due to fear. This refusal or ignorance negatively impacts the quality of our lives, as it hampers the decision-making processes necessary for understanding. Without knowledge of how things work, creating the desired conditions becomes impossible. It's essential to differentiate ignorance from nescience, which refers to not knowing because necessary information is absent or unattainable. Ignorance, however, involves not knowing despite the presence of necessary information, as it is willfully disregarded or refused. Now, let's explore the next expression, the internal expression, which concerns what occurs within us. Simply put, once we've initiated creation with a polarity, either through accepting or refusing truth, a corresponding internal process unfolds. Understanding blossoms within us. It's an internal journey. The positive aspect of this internal expression emerges when we comprehend, through developing knowledge and embracing truth, that we are sovereign. Sovereignty represents the internal positive facet of natural law. I refer to sovereignty as internal monarchy. Monarchy signifies one ruler. Mon denotes one, serving as a prefix, while archi or archon in Greek signifies ruler or master. Internally, Each of us needs to master and govern ourselves. This internal domain is our kingdom, over which we hold sole dominion, opposed to ruling over anybody else. Sovereignty, or internal monarchy, denotes having one ruler existing within as a state of consciousness. It implies unifying the three aspects of our consciousness: thoughts, emotions, and actions, such that there is no internal contradiction. In this state, our thoughts align with our emotions, speech, and actions, devoid of contradiction. We're not torn apart from within. There's no internal opposition within our consciousness. Moreover, let's delve into the etymology of the term sovereign to uncover its true meaning. Sovereign is derived from the Latin adverb super, which means above. In classical Latin, there's no distinct V sound. Instead, a V was represented by a U, explaining the appearance of the letter W. This phonetic variation expressed as V in English was pronounced as P or B in classical Latin. So, in Latin, super means you're beyond or above and beyond. Just like a superman is someone who transcends an ordinary man. Moving on to the next part of the word sovereign, we have the Latin noun regnum, which forms the second part of the etymology of sovereign. Regnum is derived from rex or regus in Latin, both of which denote king. Regnum refers to the king's rulership, serving as the origin of the English word reign. When combined, superregnum forms sovereign, signifying being above or beyond externally imposed rulership or control by another. Sovereign denotes not being subject to another being, and refusing to be a slave to someone who claims to be your master. It's an eternal truth that you are sovereign and can never be non-sovereign. There is no such thing as someone else's legitimate rulership or ownership of you, because the legitimacy of slavery does not exist, never has, nor ever will. Everyone is sovereign. A sovereign is a monarch. Again, mon means one, and archon means ruler. When people ask what kind of government I want, I tell them I want anarchy and monarchy. They ask, how could you have those things simultaneously? There's anarchy, which means the absence of a ruler, not the absence of rules, as popular belief would have it. If you have internal monarchy, you can have external anarchy. We need to have rulership within and rid ourselves of rulership without. The kingdom within is the kingdom we need to master, setting aside the concepts of mastery and slavery in the external domain. As sovereign is a monarch, a single ruler who governs only the kingdom of self. Therefore, sovereignty is a state in which one controls their own thoughts, emotions, and actions, attaining mastery over their consciousness by bringing them into unity, non-contradiction, or non-duality. Sovereignty could be seen as true self-control, true self-mastery, true self-love, and true self-ownership. It encompasses all these aspects and ultimately signifies not being a slave. This must be remembered above all else. Let's now delve into the negative internal expression of natural law, which is confusion. Confusion arises when we are in a state of ignorance. This represents the emotional dynamic, the feeling experienced within the individual. It signifies a lack of understanding. Confusion only emerges in the absence of comprehension, typically when we fail to acquire knowledge due to fear. When ignorance prevails, confusion ensues internally. In this state of perplexity, there's no internal governance. Instead, there's anarchy within us. Again, anarchy denotes the absence of a ruler, not the absence of rules. It implies a lack of self-mastery, lack of self-control, lack of discipline, and ultimately, a lack of self-love. This negative aspect of the internal expression of natural law, known as confusion or internal anarchy, indicates the absence of internal order. Confusion characterizes a state of mind wherein fear and ignorance govern. It could be perceived as internal opposition, where one's thoughts, emotions, and actions are perpetually at odds. This lack of alignment leads to contradiction and separation among these three aspects of consciousness. The fourth expression of natural law pertains to external manifestations in the macrocosm, particularly within society. This occurs when individuals embody either one dynamic within their consciousness or the other. The state of society reflects the collective quality of its constituents. If love is present, and knowledge has been acquired and understood, leading to the acknowledgement of our sovereignty and the expression of self-mastery and ownership, what state manifests in society? Freedom. Freedom can only materialize when these preceding conditions are met. It cannot spontaneously arise through any other means. If we desire freedom, this is the path we must follow: acceptance of truth and an understanding of our sovereignty through self-mastery. It's not achievable in any other manner. It's simply not possible. This concept is encapsulated in the image I selected to represent freedom, taken from the cover of what I consider one of the greatest books ever written by human hands, The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. It symbolizes not just my freedom, but our collective freedom, extending to all beings. The positive aspect of the external expression is freedom, or what I refer to as external anarchy. This signifies the absence of rulers and the absence of a master-slave dynamic. Anarchy, in its truest sense, denotes the absence of slavery. True freedom for all should be recognized as the ultimate goal of spiritual development. Such a state can only manifest when human society adheres to natural law. On the other hand, when a negative external expression arises in society, it can be described using various terms such as totalitarianism or slavery. I personally refer to it as control, externally imposed control, what I term as external monarchy, which signifies the presence of a ruler from outside who believes they own you and seeks to perpetuate ownership over individuals as their subjects or slaves. The negative aspect of the external expression of natural law, which I call external monarchy, represents this external rule by a single ruler. Control serves as the pathway to all forms of evil and destruction. It arises when a society operates in direct opposition to natural law. The fifth and final expression of natural law pertains to how it operates in our lives, which I refer to as the manifestation or the result that we create. It encompasses what we ultimately bring into existence. The positive manifestation is order, which encompasses all the things we typically desire. Manifested goodness, everything being okay, and avoiding self-inflicted chaos or suffering. In essence, it's about getting what we strive for. This state of order only materializes when there is balance or justice, as justice emerges from adherence to natural law. The negative manifestation is the opposite of order, which is chaos. Chaos represents manifested evil, characterized by a complete disregard for others and the breakdown of society fueled by a me-first mentality. It involves prioritizing personal gain without concern for others' well-being, freedoms, or rights. Self-preservation becomes the paramount principle, and survival outweighs all other considerations, even if it means trampling on others to achieve it. Chaos, or manifested evil, stands in stark contrast to what we claim to desire. It arises from imbalance and injustice, stemming from ignorance of truth and behavior that directly opposes natural law. Now, these manifestations and expressions of natural law are what I would call unilateral. They don't cross into each other. They must proceed in order and in the same column of expression. You can only reach order through freedom, which arises from the understanding of our sovereignty, gained by accepting knowledge of truth and maintaining a vibratory energy of love or higher consciousness, the openness to truth. Similarly, on the other hand, we can only create chaos when our society is focused on control, because we are confused beings who don't grasp our sovereignty. We mistakenly believe that others can legitimately own or rule us, stemming from a place of ignorance or refusal of truth, rooted in fear. When I refer to living in accordance with or in defiance of natural law, what am I truly conveying? Knowledge. Knowledge holds the key. And here's the fundamental insight constituting natural law that must be grasped. There exists an absolute polarized dichotomy. These are diametrically opposed concepts, completely antithetical, inherent in nature. The notions of right and wrong are not subjective constructs within the human psyche. Anyone subscribing to such a belief is utterly misguided. They are, in fact, delving into Satanism. The concept of moral relativism stands as one of the four pillars of Satanism. Firstly, self-preservation reigns as the paramount objective, with nothing surpassing it. Secondly, the belief is entrenched that there exists no objective distinction between right and wrong. Right is delineated as what serves one's personal benefit, while wrong pertains to what is detrimental individually, based on personal preferences and inclinations. Thirdly, social Darwinism, an extension of biological Darwinian theory, asserts that an oligarchy or ruling class possesses the authority to guide the masses, under the assumption that their intellectual superiority grants them this privilege. Lastly, eugenics represents the fourth pillar, wherein individuals perceive themselves as godlike entities, capable of determining reality and imposing their will upon others, thereby arrogating the power to decide who lives and who dies. Moreover, morality is not about right versus left, but rather, morality transcends political divisions. It revolves around the dichotomy of right versus wrong. A profound comprehension of morality, which pertains to the principles governing the differentiation between morally upright and wrongful conduct, lies at the core of natural law. Here's a simplified explanation: the distinction between right and wrong. We commonly use the term right to denote correctness, as in the case of asserting that 5 plus 5 equals 10, signifying accuracy or truthfulness. Similarly, when we ask, "Was stealing money from Jim right?" we're pondering whether the action aligns with moral principles. It's akin to how the ancient Romans employed the same term, libre, to signify both book and freedom, indicating a profound connection between reading and true freedom, as reading the right books leads to genuine liberation. In the English language, we lack distinct words for these two concepts, as right encompasses both correctness and morality. This conflation is deliberate because correctness equates to moral correctness. If something is true, it is inherently moral. Conversely, straying from truth leads to immorality and wrongdoing. To navigate between these two behavioral modalities wisely, we must discern what is true concerning right and wrong. Right signifies both correctness, rooted in truth, and morality, implying that an action, if executed, aligns with natural law and does not cause harm to other sentient beings. That's the essence of right. This definition underscores the simplicity of the concept. Right pertains to what one is entitled to do. What you have a right to do is no different from what I have a right to do. Here's the crux. Every individual on this planet possesses the exact same rights. No one has more or fewer rights than another. Rights are universal and uniform for every human being, an unequivocal truth. The following are what we simply call natural law transgressions, harmful actions that one person is capable of inflicting upon another. Among these transgressions, one of the most egregious acts is taking another person's life, murder. If we delve into a subset of this transgression, it could be categorized separately, but I'm keeping it within the same broad category: assault. Assault entails directly and unjustly compromising the bodily well-being of another individual. It's akin to attempted murder because assault, by definition, lacks any rightful justification. When someone assaults another, they have no entitlement to do so. The right to commit assault or murder simply does not exist under any circumstances. However, the right to defend oneself using physical force does exist, And perhaps in certain situations, the right to kill in self-defense may arise. Nevertheless, murder and assault can never be considered rights. Rape constitutes the second transgression against natural law. It involves coercing the free will of another person and forcing them into sexual association against their wishes. Rape is unequivocally wrong, a blanket statement. The third transgression against natural law is theft. It involves taking property that does not belong to you. If someone else acquired that property through lawful means without harming anybody else, then it rightfully belongs to them for as long as they are using it responsibly. You do not have the right to simply take what doesn't belong to you. This issue stems from our lack of understanding of property, as we'll delve into shortly. The fourth transgression is trespassing. This involves entering someone else's private space, which they lawfully own and use, without their permission or consent. It's an invasion of their privacy and personal space, depriving them of their security. We all have the right to designate a space for ourselves, our own sanctuary, and violating that is trespassing against someone else on their property. The fifth and final transgression of natural law is coercion. This involves forcing someone, typically through the threat of violence, to comply with your will, even if it goes against their own wishes. Coercion entails making someone do something against their will. Now, this list may seem small, but these 5 overarching transgressions of natural law cover a wide range of wrongdoings. Now, let's try to break it down further. Essentially, every harmful action a human being can take is a form of theft. This may be new to many people, but there's no action that causes harm to another person that isn't a form of theft. In some way or another, some form of property is being stolen when a wrongdoing is committed. When we talk about property, we're referring to what is proper or right. All rights are property rights, and all wrongs are theft of property. Life itself is a form of property. Taking a life without the right to do so, in other words, committing murder, is stealing property that wasn't yours. That person owned their life, and you didn't have the right to take it without cause. Rights, which are actions in harmony with natural law and don't harm others, are also a form of property. No one has the right to stop you from taking an action that doesn't harm someone else. Freedom, too, is a form of property. We need to deeply understand true ownership. It's not enough to just have a surface-level understanding. We need to grasp why we're in our current condition. The reason our species continues to lose freedom systematically is because we collectively lack a deep understanding of ownership, and we continue to commit and condone theft. Earth is like a prison for thieves, those who don't respect ownership and want to take what isn't theirs. That's the lesson we're here to learn. There's only one natural law: stop stealing from others, stop taking what you don't own, and stop condoning theft. So, what is ownership? What's the definition? And what does it entail to own something? Ownership means that an individual maintains 3 basic responsibilities regarding that thing. First is rightful possession, which means acquiring it without harming somebody else, thus lawfully owning it. Second is control over its usage. If you control it, you own it. And most importantly, maintaining personal responsibility for that possession is the third aspect of ownership. To own something means being in lawful rightful possession of it, controlling its usage, and maintaining personal responsibility for it. This is what we need to understand. Natural law can essentially be reduced to one single spiritual law. I provided you with the working definition, the soundbite definition before. Here's the super simplified 2-word summary of all this information. Don't steal. That's it. If you want the key out of the prison, you've got to understand property. We've got to understand that all rights are property rights. We have to stop taking the property of other beings and stop condoning the taking of the property of other beings. That's the endgame. That's the key to the prison door.